Okay, we're going to be doing gum trees, leaving the side of the canvas so they're fitting right in. I'll show you what I mean. And that's going to be sitting, those gum trees are going to be sitting inside a very low landscape. Horizon line is very low. But first I wanted to talk about negative painting. Negative painting is, the easiest way to explain it is doing the foreground first and then doing the sky or the background last. So I'm just going to demonstrate very quickly with two squares. If I do a square there and I do another square here and I draw a line here and I draw a line there, what it's doing is it's telling you that this is a piece of paper sitting on top of a line. What this drawing is doing is telling you that this is a hole with a line behind it. So this is a positive shape and this is a negative shape. So that's what we're going to be aiming at. Okay. We're only using two colors and we're starting with a brand new canvas. Brand new canvas, not very expensive canvas, but good enough. Really good enough for the painting, really good. What I would suggest is when you start with a new canvas, you're going to have finger marks, oil marks on the canvas, and what happens is the paint sometimes doesn't adhere nicely to the canvas. So what I suggest is a drop of normal dishwashing liquid, doesn't matter what color, a drop of this inside your mixture is going to make the paint stick to the canvas. So we're going to be going in this kind of area. We've got our gum trees are going to be sort of running on this side. We might have, remember we're dealing with the rule of thirds again. If you're not sure of that, then watch the previous video on that. And we're going to be putting another set of gum trees up that side. Okay. My horizon line is going to be a kind of line about there. So that's the kind of format that we're going to end up with. Most of the painting is all of the painting is going to be out of my mind, out of my head. Just traveling around the country, taking pictures with my eyes and remembering what some beautiful landscapes look like. You may be familiar with this test sheet that we did, and it was the video on darkening your colors without black. So this is where we're going to be starting, blue and orange, and we're going to be starting with this color in the middle over here. No white for now. We're also going to be using a sponge. And this sponge is a normal sponge that you would get at a chemist, a pharmacy, not an expensive sponge. And we're going to be using this for our foliage at the top of the painting. And this is the kind of action we'll be using. Okay, so let's get going. I'm using French ultramarine and cadmium orange. Alright, and I've got my reserve palette on this side. And I've got my working palette on my right hand side. So let's see what this does. We're going to mix up an orange with a blue. Okay, a little dash of water to make it make the paint softer, and bringing our blue into the center of the canvas and bringing our orange into the center of the canvas. So you don't want to make a cookie out of this. What you want to have is some more orange, some more blue, some reserve blue, reserve orange for when we go on. The brush I'm using is going to be a long handled brush, sometimes it's a pointed brush, and I'm holding it at the back. So I'm sketching this up. Remembering that the point of the video is to show how to use a sponge. Number two, show how to, demonstrate how to paint in negative. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start the painting. and I'm sketching as I go. I'm going to have little things coming out the side here, just remembering what a gum tree looks like. They're very nice trees to paint. Don't worry if you make a mistake at this point. Don't worry about making a mistake at this point. You're just sketching. You're sketching without using a pencil. So there we go, getting our shapes in. What I'm doing here is I'm actually twisting my brush, just getting our horizon line in there. I might add a mountain in the distance, something like that. And what I'm going to have is a foreground that's going to be a water body, like a dam. Like a dam or a little pond somewhere in the bottom here. Going to be shadows. But already you can see that I've begun the sketch of the painting. Negative shape painting means that I'm going to do my trees first, my foreground first, and then the very last area is going to be the sky that's happening in the middle, in between all the branches. Okay, so we're going to, let's get our shapes right. Little water added to the paint, so that it's watery and it can be applied. A very good tip when you're drawing trees. Draw trees the way they grow. So I know this one would come up and down this way, but if you're not too sure about the shape of the tree, from heavy at the bottom of the tree to lighter at the top of the tree, paint it from the bottom, and then drag your brush through. Doesn't matter. Trees do all sorts of things. It doesn't matter if you have the paint a little bit too heavily placed on there. Okay. So there will be more trees added on. Not entirely sure where yet. I'm going to see what the painting looks like. I want to put a mountain range in here, but it's going to be a distant mountain range. And it will show with color. Color is going to show that this is actually my mountain range in the background. Okay, next thing I want to show you is we're going to put some potential shadows in here, and the potential shadows are going to go from my right to my left. So the light is hitting this side of the tree, and then it's casting a shadow on the ground. It can come from either side. I tend to have a preference for my light to come from the top right. I'm not sure why, but it seems to be that way. So I'm just sketching it up quickly, and in a minute I'll be able to stop and turn my painting around and show you the kind of grid that I'm developing here. I'm going to also, remembering fence poles might be interesting. I'm going to put some fence poles in there. And the other thing that I would like to point out is perspective. Perspective is always going to be in your picture. If you're doing a landscape, you're always going to have some perspective. So I'm nearly ready to show you what the sketch looks like. Of course, you can use a reference material, a photograph, something you might have taken. Just beware of copyright. If you're using a picture from the internet or using a picture from some photo body, just be careful of copyright. It's not nice if you copy somebody else's thing, other than when it's a sketch, or whether it's an exercise for yourself. What I'm doing now is I'm going to water my paint down. Okay, and there's my paint. They're called blue gums for a reason. They actually do have a little bit, they have a lot of blue in the leaves, in the bark of the tree, and so blue is not a bad idea to start with. I would avoid green at this point. You don't want to make your typical heavy green leaves and so forth. So now what I'm going to demonstrate is using the sponge. And I'm going to pinch it a little bit like that. So I've got a bit of a dome on the top of it. And I've got these curved edges. If you use it like this, you're going to get these very sharp edges in your image. And we don't want that. Okay, let's see. I'm picking up my paint. And you can already see the texture of the potential leaves that are coming in. I'm going to just start up here. Okay, I'm just going to start up here. Start in a safe area. Start in an area that you think, okay, well, I can easily cover that up if something goes wrong. I'm going to pinch it like that. And watch the shapes. Watch how the shapes are forming. Okay, and what I want to do, I want to have the leaves of my tree go right out of the corner of the canvas, right through the frame of the canvas. Let's get some more paint. Now I'm picking up a little bit of orange and blue. It's going to come in useful. It's going to come in useful later on. Turn the sponge over every now and then. And the reason you do that is you don't want these shapes to be consistent, exactly the same as each other. Turn the sponge over. Get yourself, there's a lot of orange coming in, but there's no need to worry about that at this point. We're going to be covering this anyway. Okay, let's take a little bit there, let's put some in there. At this point you don't need to worry too much about the light direction, but just be aware of it. Okay, we're going right out of the page. We're going to cover this up more. Too much blue. Doesn't matter, you just go over it a little bit more. The more you dab it, the closer the leaves will be in your picture. Okay, too much orange. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pause it there because I want to have a look at this, and I'm going to be preparing more paint. So we'll come back in a minute. Thank you. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm preparing some more paint for my sponge. I'm going to prepare it here on my piece of laminated paper, and then I'm going to transfer it onto my actual palette because it's got a lovely reservoir. It's got a lovely reservoir in the palette which I can pick up my paint. So let's do that. Now mix, 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 bring in some water. Remember, we're doing a sketch. We're still at the sketch stage. We're doing a background sky at the end of the painting. Okay, so we mix, mix, mix. And we put that aside, and then we pick up some paint in my reservoir. Pinching the sponge, get a nice shape, and we're picking up some more paint. Another thing that you can take note of is we're actually starting with the dark, the shadowy areas, and then I'm going to lighten it up at the end, lighten the painting up at the end. Now if you look at the mark that is being made here, this is lovely, it's fantastic, but I don't want to keep repeating that mark all the time. There it is again, there it is again. So keep turning your sponge around to get the different shapes of your sponge. You don't want it to look like a sponge print. Okay, so we're putting the marks in. It's actually starting to form, as you can see, it's starting to form. Picking up more paint, put my marks in, keep watching it as it goes. And not forgetting that I'm painting this upside down, so I need to take a little peek at it and see what I've done, because I can't imagine what I've done at this stage. Okay, I'm going to put that sponge aside, and I'm going to turn my painting around so that I can see it. I love it, it's going in the right direction. Here's a larger brush. And while I've got this paint, I'm going to actually block in some of these dark areas. Really, really block in. Don't be afraid. you'll find that a blue gum has this kind of twist that happens in the tree, which makes for a very nice background to the actual tree itself. I think a good idea is to put a third one in here, because it's good to have things in 1, 3, 5 odd numbers, and they certainly mustn't be the same shape as each other. They must all have their own little unique character. I'm going to turn this painting around in a minute, and you'll be able to see what the dark has done, what we've done with this dark. It really causes, it creates atmosphere in your painting to have things that are toned down. And you'll have to remember, keep watching the video, because what's going to happen is you're going to see the light coming in. The light is going to come in on top here. It's not going to be a dark mountain. It's going to be a light mountain. It's not going to be a dark sky. It's going to be a light sky. And I'm watering my paint down slightly, like that. Now it's just giving me an idea of where I want to go. That's what this is. This stage of it is like giving me an idea. Oh man, that's looking good. That's looking good. This can change. I don't like that. We're going to cover it up with white. So it's giving me an idea of that. We could put some more in before I turn the painting over to show you. And remember, we are only using 2 colors. We're using orange and blue, and we haven't even started using white yet. So this is underneath everything. Don't be afraid to use reference material. But just watch that copyright thing. I'm going to turn it over for you. You have a look at it, and then we'll pause and come back. Alright, so what we've done now, we've come back from a small break, had a bit of a look at the painting, and you recall I had a brush like this, lovely brush. But I've decided that it's a little small for this stage of the painting. So generally speaking, when you're working, you're going to go from a larger brush to a tiny brush. That's generally the way you would work. And what I'm doing now is I'm mixing the color, same color, French ultramarine and cadmium orange, and I'm making it more paint. Remember your sponge. That's why it's called a sponge, because it soaks up the paint, really soaks up the paint. I started with blue because I've got a feeling that the orange is a very strong pigment. And I don't want too much orange. Like you see the orange in here, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter, it's doing fine, but you don't want too much orange. Blue gums are cool in color, not warm, not that warm. It gives me an opportunity to have some warmth in the foliage. Right now I've decided to take the excess paint off the brush and just kind of put it on my sponge like that. Careful you don't splatter too much like I've just done, but it doesn't matter. And then I'll go back to my shape. So this is where we're going. Once again, we've changed the system a little, so just do a little tester and see if we're going in the right direction. What I must add at this stage is I'm going quite dark. I'm going quite dark because the next phase of this painting, I'm just picking up some paint, so that's, I'm dabbing it on there like that. The next big stage of this painting is going to be bringing everything lighter, bringing it back to light. You may even want to bring these foliage pieces closer, and there, it's looking good again. What's really nice now, okay, I've got the painting facing me, but the underneath of these dabs are actually darker, so there's a shadow happening. That's happening in the dabs. And if you see something that's working, keep on going, keep doing it. It's great. If you see it's working, keep on going. Now I'm going to preempt the painting slightly by telling the viewer that when I paint the sky, I'm going to come right in here. I'm going to come right in here. These little areas I'm going to be painting where the light's going through the trees. At this point, I am quite satisfied. I'm going to do something risky. I'm going to put a piece of foliage just there. Yeah? Look at that. Look at that. That's really nice. I'm going to flip the painting in a minute and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, I'm tempted to put another one there, but that might just be overkill. Too much, too much. Don't do it, don't do it. I'm putting my sponge down. I'm going to show you the painting and then come back to... So this is what I did as my last spot, last splodge, and that gives me an idea of a kind of a bush or a shrub underneath the trees there. I like the density of this, and now I can actually paint it for you to view. Take my small brush and I'm going to reconfirm some of these heavy trunks of the tree. Getting some water in there, using the same colors. I haven't changed, I haven't added any other colors. And I'm going to be, let's work from this side because it's wet. I don't want to smudge. And I'm going to now start almost drawing more carefully. Like drawing a little bit more carefully as we go along. Getting some of these shadows in. Okay, doing the shadows again. It might be a little bit difficult to imagine what this is going to turn into. But I have to tell you, the white and the light and the blue sky and the foreground is going to all lighten this up. So there we go, we keep going. Just confirming some of these branches that are coming up. Remember I said something to the effect of paint the way the tree grows. So you're painting from the base of the tree to the top. It's a much easier way than painting down from thick to thin. Makes no sense. So you're going to paint up. And your branches are going to go across each other. These little gaps are going to work for the white. See those little gaps? They're lovely. Okay, and that's going to work for the white. When we get to the white, which is a huge shift from this stage to the point where we're putting the white, is a huge shift in the painting. But you can see the shape is coming. It's getting darker and darker, more tone. That's actually what the reference is more tone, not so much darker and darker. But starting to see my trees form. At this point we might just put a little tree out, a little branch out there like that. Well, I've just killed this little hole, which was I wanted to keep, but it doesn't matter. You can put it back in. And there, see my trees starting to form. And that's really, I'm very happy. I'm very happy with this so far. So good. Another thing is, painting from memory is a bit tricky because you don't have the reference in front of you. You've got to imagine you're under the tree. You've got to imagine you're in this field and you're actually painting what you're seeing. It's going nicely. I'm very happy with it so far. So far, so good. It's always nice to be able to say that about the painting that you're busy with. It's like, wow, it's really going well. Okay, I want to make this a bit bigger at the bottom here, like that. Have a strange little branch that's dried out and it's gone off on its own little mission. Darken this one. The more lines you put in at this point, the better. Because remember, you can always cut the lines out. We're going to narrow these lines when we paint the background. Negative shape painting. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm lifting up some paint and I'm getting into these trees here. So this is going to be a little better shape better weight, and certainly more tone, darker. And there we go with that one. Takes a little practice to get into negative shape, because while I'm painting these two trees, I'm actually concentrating on this shape right there and there and there. I'm actually concentrating on that, thinking I'm going to get back to that, and then I'll be painting a lot more carefully. Let's see what we can do. We're splitting these trees branches up as it would in nature. Looking at these shapes here, see that shape, that shape, that shape, these little triangles that are happening. And I'm anticipating that stage of the painting. Still painting from the bottom up, from the base of the tree up to the top of the tree. Every now and then you might catch yourself doing that, but it's okay, it's not so bad. Just remembering that it goes from thick to thin. Thick at the bottom and thinner at the top. See these, I'm breaking these up here. Breaking this up. I'm also when I paint a branch in the tree, I'm kind of thinking about the structure of the tree. So I'm not going to paint a piece here and then change the design or the direction. I'm going to go all the way through. All the way through, because that's how it is in nature. That's how the tree is going to be structured. And we do one of these little tricky ones on the side here, which that's going to work nicely. And I'm holding my brush at a distance. I'm holding my brush up here. If you get down to here, you're coming towards the end of your painting. At this stage, I'm still sketching. And we may be at the end of this phase, but we'll do one more thing. I'm going to use this opportunity to darken I've changed my brush. I'm going to use this opportunity to darken this part. Again, take it further, take it further. And now it's not just one color, it's actually starting to say, okay, we got to form the mountain. Most of the time, your darks are at the bottom. These highlights at the top of the mountain, we're going to paint in with light paint. I hope I remember to do that now that I've said what we're going to do. I hope we remember. But I think we will. It's going very nicely. I'm not a fan of painting around the edge of my painting. Sometimes people like to go right around the edge. It's just way too much effort, way too much work. Especially if you consider that you may be framing the painting at some stage. Now, I'm going to confess that I do not know what to do down here. So I'm going to just play. I'm going to just play. And I might cover it up, but I'm just going to play along here. Because putting these marks in is going to give me the next idea. I wanted water down there. I think I'm going to keep that idea. And I'm going to just put these little poles in, little details that might happen. Again, it could be covered up. It could be covered up. It doesn't have to stay there. I'm going to give myself this kind of dry brush feel. And that pretty much brings us to the end of that phase. We haven't even started with the sky. The sky is going to be amazing. That's when it's really going to come together. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next phase. So what I'd like to point out now, we're using a sponge, as you've seen, to do the foliage. And we're going to leave the painting to dry and take a fair break, middle of the day break. So what we want to do is you want to keep your sponge damp. I wouldn't put it in a bucket. I would put it in just a little tray like that. So it's a tray of water. I've got a pool of water in there, and I just leave my sponge sitting there. The sponge is cheap. It's not an expensive sponge. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to get the water there sponged Okay, the next thing I want to do, and I'm going to do this where it's facing you again, the viewer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to warm up the entire bottom of the painting. I'm going to warm it up while we've got the orange. We've got orange in here. But I'm going to dirty the orange slightly. I'm not going to have it pure orange. Remembering that I want a water body. I want a water body at the bottom there. But the principle of it is that the sky is blue and the front is warm. So we've got cool in your distance, cool mountains, and we're warming up the front of the painting. So it's very thin paint on dry, and I'm going to give it the direction of the perspective that may happen in the foreground. As if you're looking at a field that's been ploughed. Okay? And don't worry too much if it's not necessary to worry about it being too accurate at the moment. We're just warming that up. Now the interesting thing you may notice is it's warm at the bottom, which is close to you, it's close to the viewer, and then the foliage that is close to you is also warm. We've got this orange stuff happening in the foliage at the top here. I'm just reinforcing that. A little bit of orange. And I think we're getting there. So that's a quick little step. It's almost giving a watercolor feel here. Don't want too much of the pooling of the paint in the canvas. And something I don't like ever in my paintings, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a hair from my brush sitting right there, and I don't want that staying there. So I always just take the hairs off any area that you've seen. I keep things neat and tidy. Okay, and then I think we take a break, we come back again, and then continue. I'm very happy with the process and the progress of this painting. Cheers! Okay, we're back. What I'm wanting to do now is I'm going to introduce some white into my palette. I'll be using a little bit of white there. I always like taking it out of the tub with a palette knife, and then we just stick that on the side. What we did at the end of the last segment was we kept our sponge moist. Okay, just lying it in a little bit of water, and we kept our sponge moist. So now I'm going to put the sponge back there. I will be coming back onto the foliage with the sponge, but what we do now is talking about the negative shape that we spoke about, and I'm putting out some ultramarine blue, which is our very basic blue. Okay, and I'm going to want to put a bit of light blue down up from the bottom, just above my mountain, cutting into all these little gaps, these negative shapes. As I start working up, I'm going to have maybe an indication of cloud, and then I'll get more and more blue as we go to the top. Okay, so this is it. Fun. Let's have some fun. I'm mixing the color pretty neatly and pretty cleanly. When I say that, I'm doing blue without any dirt. It's always a good idea in your sky to add a little bit of orange, to make your blue go grey. And if you see that, it's gone a little bit grey, which is a nice middle tone for your sky. This blue is a bit too strong, so I'm going to add it to my white, just like that. And that's looking good. So let's begin the painting. Okay, so I'm testing it first. I'm going to test it first in an open area, and I'm kind of happy with how that's going. Just watch how I flip the paintbrush around, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Let's put a bit of white in there. And if you paint quickly, then you'll be able to come back to wet acrylic. Obviously, if you're painting in oil, then you've got lots more time for it to dry. But what we're doing is we're painting in acrylic, and it's going to dry very quickly. Okay, bring a bit of blue in there. Remember, when you're cutting across the back of the tree, you want to try and carry the same color. So I'm going to carry the same color across the back of the tree. You have to remember where you found it, where you found your color. And then I'm going to put it in here. And we're doing negative shape, remember? So I'm painting the back of the tree, behind the tree, the sky. Okay, and what I want you to look at is maybe some detail here. There's a dry brush happening here, and that's very nice. It's very nice. Don't be afraid of the dry brush, because you don't want to have the painting look like it's cut out, like it's a paint by number. It's not a paint by number. So have a little bit of dry brush there. I've got the sky coming through the foliage, and this is starting to really work nicely now. Okay, pick up some blue, because we've got the blue coming in here. Okay, it's a little bit too blue, but it's not so serious. We can just remember it, come back to it later. Also got some dry brush happening on the top of the mountain. So it's not a sharp edge that we've got on the top of the mountain. It's not a sharp edge inside the tree, on the branch of the tree, or the trunk of the tree is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so I'm just doing that. So it's kind of softening this. This still needs to go a little bit white, I think. And we can put a bit of white on this side. This is coming nicely. It's looking good. I like it a lot. Picking up some white. My blue is almost drying already. Okay, get some blue up here. And with clouds you can almost do anything. I mean, really, the clouds have got so much. I'm touching a bit of water in my paint because it's very, very dry. And I'm going to carry on going up this tree. Here's a hair. Get the hair out of here, out of here. Okay, and then we keep going with our blue. And keep an eye on that dry brush. You want a dry brush on the edge here. Okay, some whites. And some blue again, and you'll find that the sky, as it climbs, as it gets higher up to this point here, is going to get a little bit warmer. So I'm going to add orange into my blue. Okay. You can also see that I'm painting a little more carefully. I'm putting the paint on in areas that I really wanted to be carefully painted, and up here, touch a bit of orange in here, touch a bit of orange in there, and it starts to warm up my blue. And there it is, looking good. I love it when it works, you know. It's very rewarding. Generally speaking, art is rewarding. Not always. Sometimes it frustrates a person. But you just keep practicing. The more you practice, the better you get. And use the ideas. Copy this painting. I don't mind at all. Copy it, alter it, change it. Find your own technique. I don't think you'll be able to copy the painting exactly, so it doesn't really matter. I like this. Remember, our mountain is going to be painted, so I'm not too worried about these edges here. I'm going to come back to that now. I'm really concerned about this here, and it's looking good so far. So there we go. Let's get this back in. We're climbing to the top of our sky, so I'm going to start warming it up. Warming it up, getting the orange in there. It's a little bit of like dust that's hanging in the clouds or in the sky. Very lightly putting it on, not heavy paint, not too dense. Okay, I'm going to come back to this here. I'm going to finish up at the top here now. A little bit of water, and getting our orange in there. Too orange, doesn't matter, it's going to be fine. And there it's starting to happen. Also, this soft paint, the dry brush that I'm talking about, gives you the feel that the foliage is kind of light in weight. It's not a heavy tree. It's got lots of gaps in between. And that's giving us this opportunity to dry brush it. Right at the top, I'm going to put a stronger orange. You see how this turns out. And orange and blue are complementary colors. So the one is cancelling out the intensity of the other. And that's really what you want. Very seldom do you have sky that is super blue. It's not really that blue. Can be. But that's a little bit more abstract if you think about it. Okay. Now we're going into the other tree. And we do much the same. I'm working now from top down. So I'm going to be putting a bit of orange. That's a bit strong. I must kill that orange a bit. It's not so bad. It's okay, it's okay. Just knock that orange back. Don't forget that you've got branches happening in between here. So you're going to keep following the structure of your tree. Keep following the structure of your tree. Okay, so we're picking up the white, putting in some blue, touching a little bit of orange. Mix it up nicely. I'm putting a tiny drop of water in here because it's drying quite quickly. And try and keep an eye on the strata of your clouds or your sky as you're going along, because it really is. Treat it as if there aren't any trees. Treat it as if there are no trees. You're painting a sky. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Getting there. Okay? I hope you guys are liking the video. I hope you guys want to practice. Practice the painting, or just watch it for fun. That's fine. Don't forget to like and share. It's always nice. Like and share the painting project with your buddies. Light, putting white down here. They're not even clouds. They're just indications of the atmosphere that's happening there. And now we get a little bit more water. As you see, my blue is really drying quickly. We're sitting on a very hot day today, so it's drying very quickly. Is that grey that comes in? Grey that comes in, and I'm kind of wrapping these foliage pieces. And you must remember, as we've gone along, some of the videos that you may have already watched. When I paint, I'm not painting across like this or up and down. I'm painting in these crosshatch marks, almost a crosshatch kind of thing. As soon as you see something might not be correct, try and fix it as you're going along, especially if you know what color is in your brush. The color in your brush is going to be very evident because you've been painting with that same color. So you're using the color that you know. You don't have to find it again. Okay, mountain, we're going to come back to. I'm going to put a little bit of blue down here to give it a feel that we're climbing, we're going up in the sky here. And that's looking okay, and then we got a little bit there, break these up. Okay, what we've got to go is this part here, and then we have a look at it and see if we're on the right track. It looks okay to me, it looks good, I'm happy. Let's see what happens here. Don't put the paint on too heavily. I've done that a little bit here. It's fine, but you don't want to have it too heavy. And cut these branches down. When I say cut them down, I mean paint on the left and the right of the branch, and you narrow the branch's thickness down. Make it a bit more delicate. And that's why it doesn't matter if you've painted the branches a little bit too heavily at the beginning of the work, because you're going to come back to it. You're going to come back to it and narrow the branches down. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like from the right way around. You guys are seeing it from the right way around. Doesn't matter painting it upside down. You're most likely going to be painting it upside. You're most likely going to be painting it the correct way when you're sitting in your studio, and that's actually how I would do it too. But for these purposes, I'm painting it upside down, and I'm looking forward to seeing this. Remember, you can always come back to it. You can always come back to it, and anything that you see that you don't like, try and sort it out. Try and sort it out while you're busy. Don't feel that you're going to remember. You most likely won't remember, and it'll come back again. Come back to the painting and you've forgotten where you wanted to actually change it. We're nearly there. I'm going to put some white in here, this corner. A little bit of shaping of those branches up at the top here. Okay. So now we are at the end of this section. Not that the sky is finished, it's not finished yet. I'm going to come back with you and we'll discuss what to do next on the sky. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in a minute or two. Okay, what we've done is we've turned the painting around so I can see it. And I'm very satisfied with what's happening up here. There's a fiery kind of feel. And don't want to touch it too much. So all I've done is added more white to our existing palette. So we're still on French ultramarine blue. And we're still on our cadmium orange. And now I'm going to paint the mountain. I'm going to warm up my bluish color even more with the orange. Because I'm coming forward. You understand, as we're coming forward, we're getting warmer and warmer. Test it in an area. Okay, that's fine. I think that looks okay. It looks okay. So this is all a mix mash of your neutral orange with the blue to give you the feel of that mountain. We've got two sections of the mountain. One is running there and one is running there. So I'm going to try and follow the form of that mountain. Okay, a little bit tricky inside these pieces. Remember, this is a shrub or a bush or a small tree, so I'm going to very lightly paint that. But then when I come into this section here, I'm going to paint it fairly heavily. And I love to keep a very small, like, line, an edge there. Not one color meeting the other color, but there's actually an edge from my undercoat there. And I like doing that. It's one of my ways of painting. Okay, a little bit of water in my brush. When I say a little bit, a really tiny bit. And get back to my mountain color, which is the orange included. Orange is included here. Okay, so we're going down this side of the mountain. And once again, you're not worried about this edge here. We're going to paint that some more. But you are more concerned about the edge meeting the sky. So that becomes a little bit more carefully painted. And again, dry brush against your tree. And a dry brush at the bottom of the mountain. And try and follow the form of the mountain. It's fairly important to follow that form. Okay. The other thing that I can say is that you might be looking at the painting and you're saying, "Wow, man, he's painting so quickly. I can't paint that quickly." You don't have to paint that quickly. You can take it easy. You can take a break. You can come back to it. Okay, and I'm actually very happy about that because it reads as a mountain. That's all I need. I need it to read as a mountain. It's not a recognizable mountain, it's any mountain. It doesn't matter. I'm edging here. And I'm actually going to start using some of this. I'm coming into the foreground here. Okay, we're going to do that with a tiny brush. We're starting to come into the foreground. And then what we might do is let this dry and have a look at it again. So I'm going to turn the painting around for you, and then we're going to take a break again. Okay, one more thing. I see that there's a problem. If you see a problem, try and sort it out quite early so that you don't forget. I'm putting my hand on here, and I'm going to just join. I'm going to get rid of the line of the mountain. That's what I'm doing here. Getting rid of the line of the mountain that's going across here. It's too obvious that I still needed to paint that. So that's what we're doing there. I'm adding water, quite a bit of water, to get my paint a little bit more consistent, a little bit more detail in this corner over here. Okay, and then there was something across here that I was worried about. I think it might be this over here. Okay, so you turn the painting around, you have a look at what we've done, and there it is, and we'll see you later again. Okay, here we go. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do the foreground, and I want to remind you that we did a warm wash down at the bottom here. So you can see how it's sort of coming towards you. What I do need to do is add a little orange to my palette, because orange has dried up completely. It's fine for the dusty colors, but I need a fresh orange. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to reinforce these lines that are happening down here, because now I can see what I want to do. Whereas before I wasn't quite sure. This is completely dry, and we had about a 5-minute break, and it was completely dry. So I'm picking up this. I want to make it really dark and warm. I don't want blue now. I want blue when I come down to the water, which I'm still not sure what I'm going to do. I'm watching these lines first, and then I come down to the water. Be very careful of carrying your paint across the painting like I just did, because to drop a drop on the front of your painting is a disaster. You have to start from scratch. So let's just get really dark in some areas. Now you don't want to go to the edge. You don't want to go to the edge of the tree trunk. You want to kind of work in the center of the tree trunk and reinforce some areas much more carefully. Okay, let's get these shadows in. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to actually take my brush, charge it up with a fair amount of paint, and I'm going to drag my brush across here, and doesn't really matter where the brush goes, just create a bit of interest along the way, and then meet the bottom of the tree. Try and meet the bottom of the tree so that you've got a convincing shadow. That's what we want. Okay, a little bit up there, and then of course we're going across this way. If you've been watching from the beginning of the video, you remember these lines that we did right in the beginning, and they're helping me to see where I'm going. This is an area that's interesting and well worth pointing out. Look how thick this trunk is, this branch. Look how thin it is there, and look how thick it is there. So I need to just finish this off. This needs to run down consistently. Okay, so I'm being a little bit more careful now as where I'm going. Don't overdo the branches. They already are branches. These are branches, and we don't have to have it all sharp and cut out there. Okay, I'm going to remembering that a blue gum tree, I'm not sure where you are painting, but in your country or your area, you may not know of blue gum trees, but they're actually Australian trees, and we have lots of them in this country, in South Africa. So that's a point of interest. Just Google it, find out what a blue gum tree looks like. You get different shapes. They're not all the same. And that's what's so wonderful about painting blue gums. You can get away with any shape. Okay, what I'm going to do, I want to get a body of water down the bottom here. Now, on the edge of a body of water, you've got all sorts of little things happening. It's a dark shadowed edge. So this part is going to be a little indication of water. And you'll see what I mean when we get there. You'll see what I mean when we get there. You're going to get a reflection in there. And I'm just reinforcing these lines, making them stronger. Okay, and it's with a fairly dark color. Blue and orange again. We've only used blue and orange. We've actually used no other color, which is quite amazing when you think of the range of colors that you can get from just ultramarine and cadmium orange. So now I'm going to, let's carry on with this. Let's carry on with this. We're building it up. And remember, we're coming back to it. So this is like a picket fence of some kind, like a wooden old farmer's fence. And I'm kind of concentrating on the left hand side for my shadows. You probably won't get it every time, but it gives you a kind of convincing shape. And you've got these broken pieces of wood, old branches that you're getting in here. And it's a bit scratchy, so you're forgiven if you make a little error in the line. Don't worry too much about that. It's a little bit scratchy and it's like all over the place, you know. So yeah, have fun with it. And I'm going to darken up this. I tend to like having light in the middle of the painting, so kind of going off, hooking into the edge of the painting. So I'm going to darken this line here, and I'm going to rolling my brush at the same time. Okay, and then we're going to come back and lighten things in this entire area here. But what I want to do now is take my large brush, well, large, not a very big brush, but it's a fair size, and I'm going to give myself the indication of what happens with the water. Because I don't know what I want to do there. I want to do it and then see it and then decide. So I'm going to make this really, really quick and rough. Watered down, quick and rough. And you might notice that I'm doing more vertical lines now. But I'm getting a bit of a reflection here. The reflection of the water. And it's not thick. And it's not blue, blue, blue. It's not blue, blue. It's broken up blue, dirtied. It's a dirty blue. Yeah, so now and that dry brush is coming in again. Watching it all the time. Watching it all the time. Okay, and while we're here, here's a nice white that's coming in across there. Strong white. And you kind of keep watching it. So you're getting the prompts of what to do next. Now what I'm going to do, while we've got that area that's wet, I'm going to give it a kind of reflection of this branch, this chunk of the tree. And then I'm going to follow this and do the same. And it doesn't have to go all the way down. And it can be broken up. So I've got the fence coming in here. I've got a reflection of the fence. This tree, I'm going to do that one. They are horizontal lines. Horizontal lines that give you the ripples that are happening in the water. And it's very light. I'm not doing it darkly at all. And you might have something that happens, I don't know what's happening here. Just put this in and see what happens, see how it works. And then possibly come back to a very light. So where my darker area is, I'm going to lighten next to it, right next to it. So I'm mixing up my orange there, and I'm going to once again quite quickly, maybe with some textures picked up closer to you. You see textures closer to you. Things get a bit blurred when they go further away. There's a super white in there. And again, I'm edging my lines with the dry brush just to break it up. Yeah, so it's starting to show itself. Let's get some orange in there. What you'll find is shadows generally are cool, but your highlights that stand up on next to those shadows are going to be actually warm in the front. They're going to be warm. Break it up, break it up. Maybe put a reflection in here of that orange again. A little bit of texture is not a problem. And then we're getting up to a much more detailed between the poles of that fence. Getting more detail. And now, this is something I don't want too much of. So I'm painting in there. Just dry brushing over the shadows, dry brush over the whole pole section. Dry brush. Dry brush is a bit of a tricky thing because you have to not press too hard. Don't press too hard on the canvas. Let the canvas pull the paint off. You don't have to force the paint into the canvas. So that's nice, looking nice. Some white in there, and what I'm going to do is, I'm coming close to the end of this painting actually. I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to clog up my canvas. I want the canvas to have this, go up there, you can go up there, get a full view of the canvas, of the painting. Now if you have a look at this detail here, just taking your brush and running it up the canvas, giving you a dry brush effect. Okay, we're going to switch back to our smaller brush. This whole painting has been done with 2 brushes. We did a third brush. No, we did a third brush on that wash, but talking about the possibilities. Now what I want to do over here, I want to put a distant farmhouse. White paint, right in the dark area. And it's got no roof. It might have a roof, it doesn't really matter. What I'm doing there is I'm giving myself a focal point somewhat, and it's actually using tone, light paint on top of the dark background. And it's giving me a wonderful tonal change here. Sharp tonal change. It can be nothing else but a building. This is nothing else but a building. It's not a cow. It's nothing else but a building. So that gives me my focal point. And you don't have to have a focal point in every single painting, but it's a good idea. It's actually quite a good idea. And I'm going to lighten this, which is not white. This is not white. This is that orangey color. I'm going in between my poles, just dancing around the canvas, and it's a nice color, so I'm going to carry on with it, just dancing around each pole, get it to be more defined. As soon as you make a mistake or a little blob that you don't like, try and fix it straight away. It's always a good practice. Because like I said, you forget about where you made the mistake. And that's good, nice. And now what happens is I'm seeing this part and I'm saying, okay, looks like that needs to have a reflection. So where would you put the reflection? If you had a choice, where would you put a reflection of white in that water? Well, you'd be right if you said it would be somewhere down here. It's going to be a kind of indication of a white reflection that happens here. Not too much. You're going to find it would be good to put some highlights close to you. Because lights want to come close to you and darks want to be little tunnels and go away from you. So yeah, there we go. That I'm going to leave it as it is, and we might be at the end of this painting, which is cool. So happy. Let's put a little reflection in here to contrast those dark shadow marks. And again, I'm using dry brush. I'm not trying to make sharp edges. Okay, and we do one there. And that's getting close. Now I'm using my thumb and I'm going to just drag this white down. Okay, dragging the white down like that. It's not wet. It's a little bit wet, but it's not that super dry acrylic. And it's giving me those little lines that make it there. Now I'll try one more thing. I'm just thinking if this is going to work or not, but I do believe it will. I am going to make the smallest little mark inside that building. I'm picking up a really dark paint and I'm going to make a smallest little mark inside that building. So it looks as if it could be a doorway. Something to that effect. And it's certainly a structure. It's certainly a dwelling, a structure of some kind. Okay, and then what I see, it's a little bit too light. What I'm going to do is highlight my tree on your left-hand side of the painting. Highlight the tree all the way up, gives it a more of a sparkling effect up that tree, and it's not white. It's that dirty orangey white. Okay, it's not pure white. Okay, and I think I'm going to leave it right there because I'm happy. I'm happy with the painting. I hope you are too. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.